This is a test. Right. Hello, everybody. I apologize for the delay in starting this stream. Technical difficulties. You'd thought we can build robots, but somehow we're completely unable to work streaming services. My name's Jack. I am the CEO of HausBots. I've also just seen people saying that we're unable to hear me. Right, brilliant. Sounds come in. Yes, I'm Jack. I am the CEO and the founder of HausBots. Today, we're going to run you through what it's like to be a part of a startup, a tech startup, a robotics startup. I'm going to give a quick intro to who we are and what we're doing, talk about our long-term vision and our plans, what it's like to work here, what we look for when hiring, and then I'm going to hand over to some of our fantastic employees to get onto the employee panel. Then we're going to hand over to Dominic Keane, the founder of the British Seed Robotics Fund, as a bit of an investor panel, and finally wrap up the whole thing with a Q&A. You can see on the right-hand side, there's some comment sections. Thank you very much for the guys at Paint Tech for keeping the comment section alive. And I again apologize for our delay and change of link at the last minute, but thanks for making me aware of that. Keep the questions coming in the section on the right-hand side. There was a few on the old stream, so I'll bring those across as well, and we'll have a quick Q&A at the end. To add to that, there's a link below in the description. You can see that, click that link to give us your details, tell us all about you. We are an ambitious startup with some hiring plans in the future. Even if you're not looking for a job, give us your details, say hello. We'd love to keep you up to date with all of our information and what's going on, and you can do that at the link below. And as I say, keep the questions coming, ask the questions, we'll wrap them up at the end. So this is HausBots. This is where it all started. As you can see in the top left-hand side, that's my co-founder and technical lead on the project, Harry. That's the garage that we spent the first many months of our business in, very Apple and Google style. To this day, it still gives me a headache how messy it is, but thankfully we're slightly better than that in the office now. Since then, the two friends that are Harry and I, we've known each other since we're about 14 years old, have built our business to be funded by Dominic and his British Robotics seed fund. We've moved to an office in Birmingham, as you can see in the bottom left there. That's now our workshop. We've had some great pieces of press in the Times and a few great magazines too. And as you can see in the bottom right, that's us as a team now, with a little bit of an old version, but a version of our robotic prototype. On the team is myself. My background's all in commercial and sales, having worked at the giant that is IBM and later in my career, Vita Coco. You'll hear from the rest of them later, but as a quick overview, we've got 4 members of engineering staff in the full-time team, Harry, Mike, and Gabe, all of whom have fantastic experience in engineering fields from respected universities across the country. As I say, I won't talk about them too much now, as that's their turn later. So I'd like to start by talking to you a little bit about the problem that we're trying to solve. We, in the beginning of our idea, really stemmed out from the danger that it is for one to work at height. Around 45,000 people will fall from height whilst at work every year in the UK, and it's the single leading cause of work-related fatalities, killing about 40 people every year. For those of you out there that may or may not have had the pleasure of getting involved in scaffolding projects, the scaffolding and access that you can put up to do some of these works at height can be astronomical. All in all, there's about 500,000 working days that get lost from non-fatal falls in the UK. That's people falling, getting injured, and needing to take time off work. But as any good startup knows, you have to start somewhere. And so we kind of drilled down into that working at height problem and really focused on painting, and more specifically, exterior painting. The UK Housing Survey conducted last year outlined 7 million homes in the UK that are made of a particular construction method that they are particularly susceptible to damp. It's a type of damp where water comes in through the walls. Usually big brick buildings, like you can see on the right-hand side, where the brick becomes porous over time. And the most common way to remedy that is to stick up scaffolding on the outside of the building, perhaps use people on rope axes, you can see there, and get this completely clear paint on the outside of buildings. Our alternative is, as you all know, a wall climbing robot. It offers zero danger, as the operator never has to leave the floor. We can behave 3 times faster end to end, as you don't have to spend the time setting up your scaffolding, etc. And ultimately can offer 0 access costs, reducing the overall cost of a job quite significantly. But we don't think it stops there. The unique technology that we've developed and really cracked is this platform, this climbing robot platform, which we're able to use to climb rough surfaces and overcome obstacles whilst carrying a payload. Now, we believe that's got many other use cases besides painting. And I personally think that in 2020, it's ridiculous we still have people hanging underneath bridges for inspection purposes, and these gargantuan scaffolding projects where we should really be thinking, how can we get the people out of danger and use robotics more efficiently to undergo some of these big surveying and industrial jobs too, on whether that be bridges or power plants, dams, etc. Our plan is, and brief history, as I mentioned at the start, we've raised some seed funding from a group of angels, which Dominic represents. And that really took us to where we are today with our version 1 prototype working. It's out there doing jobs at the moment with a set of clients. And as you can see on the screen, what we're really working on now is cementing our product market fit with those customers. And what that means is we have a set of customers who use and enjoy our product, and we're constantly iterating to make sure it's better, can do things to surprise people, do the job fantastically, make the job safer, etc. And that's really what we're focusing on now, is this attention to detail to making a fantastic product. We're likely going to be hiring in the new year, towards the end of this year, as we put together a further funding round. And that's going towards us building our version 2 robot, which we believe to, or we're aiming to have as a robot that we can give to other people to use. And in the meantime, building out our service version of the business. So at the moment, we have an operator, a robot, and go to site to perform jobs. And that's what we'll be rolling out with the next fund round. In the future, it doesn't really stop there either. At this point, we will not only have created a world-leading wall climbing solution for having real-world applications, but we'll actually be out there doing it. It won't be theoretical. It'll be in the hands of people who are genuinely using our product and loving it. So a little bit about us as a team and what it's like working at HausBots. Yes, we're a team of talented, knowledgeable individuals, but really it comes down to sharing a common set of values. Between us, we spend a lot of time thinking about what motivates us to come to work. And really the main driver is that we're working on something completely new that's never been done before. I think for me, that's a prerequisite to having anybody work in our team and join, is you share our values. Yes, it's fantastic if you have the education, etc., to back it up. But for me, the value sharing is the main ethos to becoming a member of our team. Curiosity, communication, honesty, innovation, passion for the project, and selflessness is what all of our employees, partners, and everybody must share. And for me, working at HausBots is summed up nicely in this sentence. Imagine working at a place where everybody is an expert in their field that you can learn from. That doesn't necessarily mean they come into the company as an expert in their field that you can learn from. However, they have that tenacity and drive to want to become an expert in their field. And often, and in all of our cases, that's what links us as a HausBots team. Is we may not be at the pinnacle of our fields as we speak today. We have a fantastic background and solid foundation to go from. But most importantly, we know that there's things to learn. We know that there's mistakes to be made along the way, and everybody is learning together to become a better version of themselves in the future. To second that up, imagine working on world-leading technology to fundamentally change industries forever. And I think that sentence just further adds to the ethos that we're building at HausBots, the world-leading technology that we're building and really driving change in industries. And I hope the guys will talk about this in a little bit, but for me, the main difference between a traditional job and working at a startup is being listened to and having an input on everything. We're a small team of 5 at the moment. We all sit within a few meters of each other. Well, not now during the current virus situation, but we all sit within earshot of each other. And whatever decisions being made, whether that be marketing, sales, finance, an engineering decision, a product decision, talking to customers, everybody has a valid input to listen to and actually have their ideas put into plan and put into place whilst at the workplace. That hopefully gives you a good overview to what we stand for at HausBots and what we're doing. My email address is there. Feel free to reach out at any time you want. But for now, we'll be moving on to the employee panel, the employee questionnaire. I'll mention just before we move on to that there's still the link below that you can put your contact details in to let us know about yourselves, say hello, etc. Keep filling up the comments, the comment section with questions, which we'll review at the Q&A section at the end. But in the meantime, if I could ask the team to put their videos and speakers on, we'll get into the questions section. And there we have it. Hopefully everybody in the stream can see us all. How are we doing today? Give a good wave for the camera. Superb. Right, we will start by doing a really quick roundup. I'm going to start with Harry and go through everybody. And the question I'd like to ask is, can you each give an introduction to yourself, what your background is, and a fact that not many people know about you?
Well, okay. Hi, I'm Harry. As Jack said, was co-founder of HausBots. I've just always built stuff. That's my background. Lifelong tinkerer. You know, rebuilt cars and various things, and the project came about because it was just something that I was tinkering with. Went to university and studied design engineering, which is basically a course in tinkering. And then kind of went from there. As a fact that not many people will know about me, well, I'm currently on the boat on which I live. I live on a narrowboat.
That is a good fact that not many people know about you. Fantastic. Jenna, how about yourself?
Yes. Hello, my name is Jenna. I am originally from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. In Canada, I got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. During my studies, I worked at 3 different companies in the oil and gas industry. Then I basically just made a decision to move countries. I love Canada, but I wanted to change. So I went to London, pursued a master's degree in bioengineering robotics. Then once I graduated from there, I started working at HausBots. So at HausBots, I'm a mechanical engineer, and up until recently, 2 months ago, I took on a bit of a hybrid role between mechanical engineering and engineering management. And a fun fact about myself, I was thinking, and it came to me just moments before this stream, a year and 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I was in Japan watching a sumo wrestling tournament. This is the mug.
Just to prove that you've been there, you got the mug. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jenna. Mike, tell us about yourself and a fact that not many people know.
Yeah, hello. Full name is Mikhail. I'm from Greece, or shorter Mike. I'm a software engineer here in HausBots, software / electrical engineer. Born and raised in Greece, and moved here 6 years ago. I studied computer science mainly in University of Piraeus, and then I wanted to focus in robotics, so I entered the University of Birmingham and got a master's degree in robotics. And fact about me that I think not many people know is that before discovering the field of robotics, I wanted to become a paleontologist, and Indiana Jones.
Ah, yes, yes, with fossils, etc. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that fact. Fantastic. Cool. That is cool. Brilliant. That's a good intro to a team. As you can see, a wide breadth of backgrounds, skills, and interests. I'll start with yourself, Harry. I'd just like to ask you: can you walk us through a day, or because every day is so varied, a week in the shoes of Harry Smith?
Well, would you want to? Would be the question. So to answer the question, I suppose a lot of my role is R&D, research and development. So Jack may shoot me an email at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning or something, and sort of say, oh, you know, I've been speaking to a client and they've come up with this as a potential use case for the robot or feature to be added, can you work out a way of looking to implement that? And then, early on in the week, I'd work through some potential prototyping solutions, and what the way that we find most effective to prototype things is to just build something as quickly as possible, really short cycle times. So probably first couple of days of the week might be building a rough mock-up to see if I can prove a point of that, and then we might go back to said client with some feedback, and there might be a bit of that in my week as well, as more of a kind of a in my sort of CTO-ish role. And then a lot of it is actually pretty enjoyable, certainly, but pretty kind of routine, in that it's running a fleet of 3D printers to get stuff made, and drawing things up on the computer, on CAD, and doing the occasional simulation and whatever, and building stuff, actually working on the products that we, the robot that we build. We, the four of us, put the things together. They're not assembled in a factory somewhere. It's us with our bare hands. So that's what occupies a lot of my time.
Super. Thank you very much for that. Jenna, why don't you follow on with the same question? Take us through a day or a week in your shoes. What are you responsible for? What do you do, etc.?
Yeah, so basically kind of what Harry said. Every day is definitely not the same, but we do have in some ways a standard format for how the week will look. So on Mondays, we all come in and have a Monday morning meeting, and we just I'll brief the team on any deadlines coming up for that week. On Tuesday, I lead an engineering stand-up where we all just go around and take turns updating everyone on the current progress of all of our individual projects. Also, Tuesday and Wednesday, I have one-to-one meetings with both Mike and Harry. And then on Friday, I sit down with Jack and we delegate out different roles and prioritize new projects that come in. But between those meetings, some of the different projects I'd be working on are very different. Like for instance, today I was assembling up different gearboxes. I'm sitting at my desk right now, and there's tons of different 3D printed parts and gears around me. So I'll find myself on CAD making a new component, or on running a CFD analysis, setting up a test rig, anything. It's a lot of fun, and it's different every day.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yes, that's kind of the main takeaway with startup life, is different every day. Mike, can you just talk a little bit more about the skills that are needed to get into the field of robotics? What are the main skill sets that people need to have to build robots?
Yes, well, I believe that you need to be able to think outside of the box is required, and to be able to think on the spot many different solutions and apply them is also really good. And definitely need to be a teamwork player, because we rely on each other very, very much. I mean, there is an assembly line, because the guys said that we built a robot in-house. So this means that Jenna assembles the gearboxes, then she gives them to me so I can calibrate them, can calibrate the motors to see that everything is working, then go back and forth all that procedure. And definitely you need to be patient.
Yes, you definitely need to be patient. Yes, electronics have a mind of their own.
Yes. Not just that.
Yeah.
Not just that.
No, good stuff. Thank you, Mike. So I'll go back to Jenna for this one. Obviously, your background, and you worked in a couple of different companies, some big, some small. What's your take on what's different about startup life and working in startups?
Yeah, I'd say the first main thing is definitely that at a startup you have much more autonomy. You definitely have more of a say to come up with your own decisions, and it's a lot easier to bring up new ideas and actually get to work on them. I like I said earlier, I worked at about 3 different engineering companies in the oil and gas sector, and probably one of the biggest examples I could give about how different a startup life is to a bigger company life is something as simple as changing a note on an engineering drawing would have to be sent through 3 different people for revision, and that project itself could take 3 days from the day you get it to when it's accomplished. Whereas here, we go through so many things very quickly. It's fun, it's challenging, it's definitely not boring. Another thing is that you definitely have to be self-motivated. There's not always somebody you can go to. Yeah, I'm losing my train of thought, but basically just you have to be self-motivated, really good at working independently, take initiative on projects, and you really get a voice quickly working at a startup.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I'll go to Harry on this one, because I know it was a potential thing that we've discussed through the years that we've known each other. Why should someone not consider working at a startup, whether that be a robotics startup or a general startup? You know, what kind of person should be thinking about, you know, a different type of job or a different company? Why shouldn't you consider it?
Well, a good question. I think the thing with a startup is it not only becomes a job, it will either become a passion or a pain. If you're passionate about it, then it becomes, you know, really quite a good fun thing to do and to kind of engage, you know, with the whole of your life, and you'll probably end up going to bed thinking about it and all of these things. And if you're not passionate about it, or you're thinking you're just in it to make a quick buck or whatever, then that, you know, it's going to be a right pain. That, you know, sometimes you do have to work reasonably hard at it. Sometimes, you know, that there are long hours, the rewards don't pay off, especially because we're doing stuff that no one has ever done before. We don't know what the outcomes will be when we build something and test it. And more often than not, some of the early stage stuff really doesn't work and will never work. But that's why we're testing it. And if you're the type of person who wants everything to be very much like working from a textbook or something like that, where there is always an answer, you can always get it right, and the solution is possible, then a startup probably isn't for you.
Definitely. Ingenuity and one's willingness to make mistakes. I completely agree. Yeah. Super. I'm going to go the last couple of questions before we move on to the investor panel start of this conversation. The last few questions, I'll put this one to Mike. How would you say that HausBots has helped you in your professional and personal growth? If we have.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, before joining HausBots, the only thing I loved to do was coding in HausBots, because when I first joined, we didn't have any electrical engineer. Well, basically, we still don't, but I had to learn a few. I had to learn how to troubleshoot the electronics, how to solder onto PCB, how to make PCBs, how to design PCBs. I've learned a whole bunch of new skills, and definitely I got even better time management skills and a greater sense of responsibility working with you guys.
A tear to my eye. Thanks, Mike. And Jenna, how about yourself?
Well, I don't know how I'm going to follow that. Definitely, I came from a background with a lot of school, so I was very regimented. I like things very perfect. And I literally remember on day 1 or 2 coming to work here, Harry had asked me to, what did he say, super glue something together or use hot glue for something. And I just remember thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? But I've definitely grown as a designer, somebody. I used to think I was curious before, or I love thinking outside the box, but I've definitely grown with those traits since working here. You definitely learn to think quickly, definitely how to speak up for yourself and manage your time better. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. And now managing other people, of course.
Yeah.
Super. Well, I think that that concludes this part of the talk. Thank you very much to the HausBots team. If I could ask you to give a wave and turn your video off, then see you all later. Great. So before we move on, I'm just going to ask to find us all on LinkedIn. Feel free to send us messages, ask for any help. We've all got a LinkedIn profile. You'll be able to find us fairly easily. As I mentioned before, there's a link below for letting us know about yourself, and please keep the questions coming on the right-hand side. Now we're going to go into the investor panel start and part of this conversation, who I'm joined by Dominic Keane, the founder of the British seed robotics fund BritBots. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Dominic, should we just start by you giving a quick introduction to yourself, your career, and now BritBots?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an engineer by background, but I spent most of the start of my career in early stage venture capital, mainly in software and semiconductor businesses. And then I started my own software company about 15 years ago, and that business had its ups and downs, but eventually went on the London Stock Exchange in 2013, and I ran it as a public company for a number of years. And then when that was coming to a close and we were selling that business, I kind of felt that this amazing power of computing was ready to leap out of devices, mobile phones and computers, and start to occupy the real physical world in a more serious way. So I started to invest personally in some robotics companies in the UK. And the more I did it, the more it became clear that there needed to be a more structured investment fund and support mechanism for some of the brilliant founders I was seeing coming through. So at that stage, I set up BritBots, and really BritBots' mission is to do two things. Firstly, to invest in companies and attract third-party investments into businesses, and then secondly, to work with the brightest and best robotics and AI founders in this country to help build enormous, globally significant businesses. So those are the two things that we do. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we've now backed nearly 20 companies. And I guess part of our mission is that we kind of believe that the power of robotics and AI is moving into pretty much every sector of the economy. So we try and support companies which cover that real breadth of ambition of this sector. So yeah, we've very much enjoyed working with you guys at HausBots over the last few years.
Thank you, Dominic. You don't have to say that. Could you just talk me through a couple of the other investments that you guys have made, and perhaps some of the most promising, perhaps even past British robotics companies?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when we started, we had quite a lot of emphasis on mobility platforms. So we've backed businesses which basically sort of take robotics to new places. So for example, we have a four-legged robot which sort of walks up and down industrial premises. We have a number of drone businesses. We've got logistics and warehousing robots on wheels. So quite a lot of emphasis to begin with on the mobility side of things. And then from there, we've then gone into sophisticated forms of sensors, more kind of end use robotics. So we've done quite a lot of stuff in agriculture, and then some stuff on the more general robotics ecosystem. So one of our businesses, BotHive, is effectively an e-commerce platform that makes it easy for businesses to use robotics to automate their businesses. So yeah, quite a broad variety, and all the companies are available for more inspection on our website, britbots.com.
Super. Yeah, that sounds great. As a slight follow on from the conversation that we've just been having as well, and the touches that you've had into many of these British robotics companies, what would you say are the reasons that make robotics a unique and great choice to build a career in, whether not just engineering talent, but across the whole breadth of skill sets?
Well, in some respects, it's the next new frontier, in that you know, the world of particularly sort of software is so developed these days, and you know, a lot of the bets have already been placed, but actually sort of encompassing the power of computing in the physical world is still very much a new domain. And so, you know, the great businesses of the future in this area are still being born today. So that's really the excitement of it.
Definitely, yeah, and you can be part of a new wave of industry, certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On the same sort of train of thought as well, what would you say are the main kind of successful or main attributes of those who are the most successful in the industry?
In terms of startups, I think it's you know, the best teams we see are the ones which manage to balance you know, very high quality engineering and science talent with a kind of commercial pragmatism. So a bit of a turn off for us is a business which is almost too much on the bleeding edge of science, but it's going to take many years to bring that kind of technology to the commercial market. So we try and strike a balance, and we look for teams which strike a balance where you know, they've got brilliant technology, they've probably got a couple of patents, but it's a piece of system or technology that can get to market, you know, within a couple of years of us making the first investment. And then obviously we're looking for enough kind of commercial savvy and kind of go to market know-how in the team, so that we can have confidence that these are guys that really are going to be able to deliver their first £1 million worth of sales, the first £10 million worth of sales of their product. And I think a big problem in the in the UK often is that some of those commercial and business skills can be a little bit weak. So I would say to anyone that's starting a robotics company, make sure that you've got a really good business person on the team from day one, because it's going to be a problem if you don't.
Definitely, I second that. I would be amiss to not mention the current climate. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts on how you think the current COVID situation and the pandemic may present opportunities or perhaps threats for the robotics industry as a whole.
Yeah, so what we've seen in previous kind of recessions is that actually, funnily enough, it's a boost for automation, because businesses are under just a huge amount of pressure to operate more efficiently. And so in the good times, people don't really necessarily need to think too hard about these kind of problems. But when they find that they've had to lay off a good proportion of their workforce, yet still try and do the same amount of work content, they then have to really search around for novel approaches and solutions. So typically automation gets a bit of a boost in downturns, and we would expect to see that. We're also, in spite of the fact that more people are going to be looking for jobs, I still think that over the last couple of years, we've seen a bit of a tipping point where, for most forms of kind of repetitive manual work, actually most robotics, there is normally a robotic solution out there which is likely to be in some way cost advantageous. So we are seeing a bit of a tipping point over the next 5 years of a lot of just traditional job tasks being automated, and I know you've seen a bit of that in the painting and decorating industry, particularly with a sort of slightly aging workforce. So it's a very exciting time for this sector.
Certainly, yes, yeah, I would agree. The last couple of questions that we'll wrap up this part, but the next one I have would be around what advice would you give to somebody thinking about starting a robotics career? Perhaps they're listening to this and either coming up to graduation or a recent graduate and considering the industry. Any tips or tricks or just advice to give?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's going to be a tough climate over the next 12 months. So I'd encourage people to really do their research and find companies that they really believe in and really feel a certain amount of sort of affinity and passion towards, and then be happy for at least the first year or so to be prepared just to kind of do pretty much whatever it takes to help out the company, and then find that sort of niche area where you can flourish. But obviously it's going to be a kind of employer's market for the next year or so. So I think anyone entering the market will need to just kind of be prepared to just get stuck in with whatever it takes and sort of carve out their position rather than expect it to be sort of offered up on a plate first time round.
Of course, yeah. My final point is actually an invitation to yourself and ask if there's anything particular you'd like to share or direction you'd like to point anybody to find out more information about yourself, or anything upcoming people should be aware of.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can contact us at britbots.com. Obviously, we're always really happy to hear from anyone who thinks they've got a breakthrough robotics concept. But I would stress that we're kind of in the business of backing businesses rather than technology ideas. So what we like to see is that sort of fully rounded marriage between a technical advantage and a great business model. But if you think you've got one of those, by all means, get in touch with us, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Definitely, yeah. Would you say that there's a channel for people to who are interested in working in one of the BritBots backed startups to get in touch through you as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, if they just want to leave a message on the website and you know, give a little bit of information on particularly where they're looking for, I'd encourage people to do a little bit of research into our portfolio companies and you know, direct their offer, if you like, towards one of those companies, and then it's easy for us then to make the introductions.
Super, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Dominic. I'll ask you to stay on the line and ask the other three to come back and turn your videos on, if that's okay. For those wanting to get in touch with Dominic, just to reiterate, his contact details can be found on the britbots.com website, Dominic Keane on LinkedIn. The same with all four of us, Jack Corns on LinkedIn, Harry Smith, Mikhail Skitsas, Jenna Luchak on LinkedIn. So this moves us on to the Q&A part of the session. There's been lots of activity on the chat, so I'll get back to those. However, we had a bunch of pre-submitted questions, which I'll go through first. The first one I think would be most appropriate for Mike to answer. I've been wanting to get into coding for a long time. How did you start?
How did I start? Honestly, I just I picked up a course. I mean, at high school, I really liked the computer science course. So I said, okay, that's what I want to do. And then I focused all of my effort into getting to the university I wanted, which was purely computer science, and that's basically it. After that, you will get the knowledge, but you also need to put work yourself. Otherwise, if you don't want to spend like 4 years in a university, there are several great online tutorials or courses like Udemy or things like that you can follow, at least to begin with.
Super. That sounds good. I'm going to go to the question list now. We had one from Catherine Campbell. Hi Jack, what early stage support groups in robotics did you engage with whilst you were pre-revenue? I'm not sure I can answer this in the way that I think you're asking me to answer it. However, we built quite a long relationship with Dominic and BritBots before the investment came in. So I think what I would say on that point is having a relationship with potential investors, you know, build up the conversation and ask what they're looking for, etc., was extremely valuable for us. I'm not sure if there's anything else you can add to that question there, Dominic, with support groups for early stage robotic startups.
No, obviously around the country there are a bunch of really good robotics labs and ecosystems. So I'm most familiar with the setup at the Bristol Robotics Laboratory, but kind of locating yourself in or around at least one of those robotics hubs it tends to be quite a good place to start to really sort of get involved with robotics founders and businesses.
Super, thanks for that. I think this one's most appropriate for Harry as the CTO on the project. What technical skills will we be looking for when we're next hiring?
Across the board, to be honest, but I think the biggest thing with robotics is an interdisciplinary understanding. So in robotics as a field as a whole, basically anything technical you could ever think of, from biology to material science to, you know, aerospace engineering to things like that, it's all covered within the field of robotics. So I think you know, because we're looking for we will be looking hopefully for a range of roles. The key things are, do you fit with our core values that we flashed up earlier on the screen, and can you work across a number of technical areas while obviously you would have a specialism in one of them in particular.
Super. Thank you very much for that. And one here from Joe, which I think is most appropriate for me. I wonder if you can share some experience on quest for funding and perhaps some advice. I've touched on this already, actually, with Catherine's answer. The big piece of advice I would say, and we're going through that process now is building relationships with investors for a long time. You know, very rarely are deals struck with people, you know, popping up out of nowhere and immediately it happening. So I think that's been a beneficial thing for us, and I would recommend for any founders looking to raise investment. A question here, which I think Dominic will have a good answer for, from Ahmad. What would you say is the largest overhead in robotics prototyping and development?
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the sort of business. I think what we've certainly seen over the last 3 or 4 years is that it's just increasingly easy to do really good quality simulations and kind of virtual constructions, which means that you can kind of drastically reduce that cost that people previously used to have of just kind of buying a lot of stuff and then having to throw half of it away, or having to do lots of iterations of physical prototypes, which can get very, very expensive. So really, I think the sort of answer to the problem is do as much as you possibly can in sim before you start to construct sort of physical equipment, because that's the thing that really can get pretty expensive. However, saying, in any business, as you quickly find out if you're a founder, the expensive bit walks in through the door and walks out at the end of the day, and you know that's life.
Yeah, certainly. This is a question which I think Jenna can answer, which is how do we deal with employee shares, and do employees get an option to be part of our share pool?
Simple answer, yes. Mike and myself are both share members. So yeah. Super. Very simple answer, concise, to the point. Yes, we think it's very important for people to be involved in the process the whole way long. We've set up an employee options pool, which is fairly standard for most startups nowadays, and that's something that we partake in, and you can expect to be a part of if you come along on the HausBots journey. I will wrap it up with this final question, which I think is probably best for Harry to answer. Have we ended up spending more money than we anticipated on our MVP?
Yes, in a short answer. Yeah, that's the case. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to we've never built a startup from scratch before of this kind. You know, Jack has had businesses before and sort of roles in businesses very similar to this, but not actually built anything like this. And also, no one's ever built a wall climbing platform like ours before. So once again, there is no WikiHow article on how to build a wall painting robot and how to actually cost something out like that. So not by much, not drastically, but yeah, everything I think always is more expensive and takes longer than anyone possibly expects.
Yeah, there's a quote I think from Bill Gates which I like, which is you will always overestimate the amount you can do in a day or a month, but underestimate the amount you can do in a year. And I think short-term wise, things you could see being quite expensive, but long-term, yeah, we did a good amount of work and are, and will continue to. Super, that concludes all of that. Thank you very much to Dominic of BritBots and the HausBots team for joining. If I could ask for a quick wave and then for you to turn your videos off, and I shall see you shortly. Brilliant. So thank you very much to everybody who tuned in. Last closing things from me, please get your mobile devices out, or your laptops, or whatever your preferred method of communication is. Add us all on LinkedIn, stay up to date with our news of when we will be thinking of hiring and coming out with new devices, etc. Myself, Jack Corns, Harry Smith, Jenna Luchak, Mike Skitsas, and Gabe Walton you can find on LinkedIn. Dominic, just to confirm, is Dominic Keane, founder of BritBots and the British Seed Robotics Fund, which you can find at britbots.com. As I say, there is a link below for you to let us know who you are. We're always interested in finding interesting people to come and work with us, whether that be partnerships or customers or potential future employees. Say hello at the link below, which will give you an option to give us your contact details, and we'll be in touch in the future. So on that, I will say thank you very much for joining, and I shall see you shortly.